Most of the work we do as photographers in Photoshop is in an RGB color space. But there are other color modes such as CMYK and LAB. While it looks like lab, LAB is actually an acronym that stands for lightness, channel A, and channel B. Because the LAB color mode works with luminosity and color data differently, it allows you to make contrast and color adjustments differently than you can in RGB color spaces. When I'm not able to get the colors the way I want them in the RGB mode, I give LAB mode a try. The problem is that images can only be in one color mode at a time, and some of the adjustments and tools that we use in RGB modes aren't available in LAB. Also, if an image already has adjustment layers, converting to LAB will require them to be flattened. For these reasons, LAB was something I rarely used until I worked out a way to combine LAB adjustments within an RGB image. Since then, Tony made an action for this in the panel, which makes using LAB color adjustments even easier. First, I'll show you how to create an LAB layer inside an RGB image document, and then we'll look at how LAB can be used to adjust color and contrast. This is another adjustment that's often best done near the beginning of your Photoshop work, but you can do it anytime. The first step is to create an empty layer at the top of the layer stack, and then merge all the layers into it by typing Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E or Command-Option-Shift-E. And I'm going to name it LAB so I know what it's for. Now we're going to convert that merged layer into a smart object. And now we'll double click the smart object to open it as its own document. And now that we have it open, we're going to come up to Image, Mode, and convert it to LAB color. Save the smart object by selecting Save or doing a Control or Command S. And once it's been saved, we can close it. Now we're back in the original RGB image, but the smart object is in LAB mode. And anytime you want to make LAB adjustments, you can just open the smart object by double clicking on it and then add your adjustments, save it and close it, and those LAB adjustments will update back into the RGB image. Now that's still quite a few clicks to do by hand, so in the panel you can run the RGB LAB action and it does all of that for you. It creates the merged visible layer at the top of the stack, it converts it to a smart object, it opens it as its own document and converts it to the LAB color mode. And when you're inside the smart object document and you want to go back to the RGB image, you can just run the same action again and it will save the smart object and update the LAB adjustments and close the smart object and take you back to the RGB document. So this is the one I made manually, and this is the one that the action in the panel created. We only need one of those, so I'm going to delete this one. Okay, now that we know how to create an LAB layer in an RGB image, let's look at how you adjust LAB color with it. But before that, let me show you some challenges I was having with adjusting the colors in RGB with this image. Go ahead and turn off the LAB layer for now. If you've ever been to the Palouse in spring, you know just how electric the newly sprouted wheat is, especially when it's backlit, like it was when I took this image. But if I add a hue saturation adjustment layer and increase saturation to try to get those greens and yellows to look more saturated like I saw them, it makes it just look washed out and cartoonish, not electric. And then if I try to bring in some contrast with a levels adjustment, it just gets worse. So now let's try making similar adjustments with our LAB layer. So I'll double click the LAB layer to open it. And now I'll make some of those same adjustments. I'll go ahead and add a hue and saturation adjustment layer and increase the saturation. And I will add a levels adjustment layer and we'll use the levels to increase the contrast in the image. And already you can see that it's not nearly as cartoonish as the results we got in RGB mode. And you'll notice that instead of working with an RGB channel, we're working with the lightness channel here. And if I go into the individual channels, instead of RG and B channels, we have an A channel and a B channel. And with the A channel and the B channel, by pulling over the black slider and the white slider, we can further work with and fine-tune the colors and the contrast in the highlights and the shadows. And that's the AA channel. And if we do the same with the B channel, and if you notice, if I pull this black slider over, I start to see a lot of blues in the shadows. But now I can counterbalance that with the other slider and slowly work in an amount of color and contrast that I think looks right for this image. And like I said, there's a whole different way of working with color balance and saturation and contrast than we can do in the RGB mode. But once I have that looking pretty good, I can either save the smart object by doing a Control or Command S, or in the panel, since I'm in the smart object, I can just run the action again and it'll do all that for me. And now we can see these are the adjustments that I was able to make with LAB mode, and those are the adjustments I made in RGB mode. So the LAB mode for this image really gave me more of the look and the results that match what I was experiencing when I took the image and what I was hoping for. But that's not to say that LAB color is inherently better. It just gives you another approach to adjusting color and contrast that might work better for some images. Let's give LAB mode a try on this image as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the Make It Glow adjustments that we made before, and then we can compare them to the LAB adjustments later.